away from speculation, let's stick to fact and the viability of the SGR. One of the questions that it was coming out that was raised by the Chinese was, first of all, how viable it is, and that now remains a question. Maybe after their test between Mombasa and Naivasha, the viability now is questionable.
I sit in the Transport Committee in Parliament, and I can tell you, let us not be cheated. The project is viable. The only problem is that the kind of agreement we negotiated with China has held the whole process hostage because it's being managed by Chinese themselves. Is it too expensive? Because it can be viable, but when you look at it in terms of economies of scale, maybe it is very expensive. They are managing it themselves, and when you look at the revenue collected and how they are paying themselves, it's high time Kenyans to take charge and agree on how to pay them their debts. So why would they require Kenya to give an audit of how viable it is when they're fully managing? What kind of audit are they looking for when they are the ones managing the project? And that's the question. Do you think this is still becoming unclearer? Because if they are managing it, and one of the questions that was raised during that meeting was the viability and whether it is going to be viable once it is done, especially at the cost that Kenya has.
Personally, as well, one of the key reasons why I stood with President Uhuru throughout was that one day the railway will reach Kisumu, Busia. It was good when the railway used to go there. It's a promise I would have wished my president to fulfill before he leaves office. And it was good and it is good. But having seen the one we have from Mombasa to Nairobi, having seen the cost, having seen what it generates, having seen the issues, looking overall as a country, we may then have to relook the question of viability if we are now looking for the love of the country. If you are looking at it as people from Nyanza, as people from Lowland, I think they should go and borrow money from anywhere and put it. But if you are looking at it as a country, as our children, grandchildren, and a legacy, having seen what the Chinese did with this, the cost and the corruption and all these things, we need to relook, make a few amends, re-evaluate, and then make it proper and even cheaper. If it turns out that Uganda will not utilize it in such a way that it makes money, then looking at our debt burden, we may have to wait to make it another time. That would be very expensive, reconsidering to do it now that it's already been started. But that would also speak to how good we are with planning. Senator, do you think we need to relook the SGR? I mean, we've already done the first phase. It's just the second phase remaining. And it seems that if well managed, there could be viability on it.
Yes, I think for me, we need to relook at SGR and generally other big infrastructural projects. I say that because there were issues that were raised, which for me, they are yet to be answered concerning SGR. Issue number one, why not use the old track? You remove the old track, you replace it with SGR. That way, you reduce the amount that you are going to pay land speculators. Another issue, why didn't we use the so-called LAPSAT corridor? Or that is, we use the Lamu-Isiolo route. That way, you open northern frontier districts. But most importantly, what is the impact of that project on what we call budget deficit of this country? Remember, every time you have a huge loan, the effect of that is to crowd out private capital formation, because the government is going to have a huge debt. Then the government will be borrowing externally and domestically to plug that huge hole on its budget. As a result of that, banks will prefer to lend government as opposed to lend private individuals, and therefore businesses will not access capital. There will be no new shops, new businesses which are being opened because people cannot access cheap credit. And therefore, for me, I am not a real supporter of what we call a budget deficit. I prefer what we call fiscal conservatism. That is, you ensure your expenditure almost equals your income, as opposed to having a huge budget deficit. And SGR can be a key driver for a ballooning deficit between countries' income and countries' expenditure in its budget.
All right, and of course, it was not just all about SGR. There was some headway made when it comes to the construction of the express highway from Jomo Kenyatta to Waiyaki Way at 51 billion, the expansion of the northern bypass to ease congestion, and the Konza data center, which of course has been a long way waited for. So, looking at what that means for Kenya. I'll start with you, Honorable Dege, with the road congestion being eased from Jomo Kenyatta all the way to hopefully onto Waiyaki Way, which is something which had been funded or initially was to be funded by World Bank, but they pulled out mysteriously.
It's good news for Kenyans, but I still strongly believe what will save our airport and our people going to the airport plus everything to the airport should be a tram service or train service, not by a road. The road will still be congested. We need a serious train service to the airport.
Okay. Weda, your thoughts on whether those are things that Kenyans should be celebrating about?
Yeah, I think it is good news. My worry is when I hear 51, is it $51 billion or 51 billion Kenya shillings?
51 billion Kenyan shillings.
51 billion Kenya shillings is basically petty money that we should not borrow. It is something we just save on from the corruption sector. We can save and get the 51 billion. So it is good planning the project, but I don't think I would celebrate borrowing that money when we can just look at pocket change from our corruption sector and then get that money and then use it to do the road.
All right.
Can I mention that?
Yeah, sure.
It was not money that was being borrowed. If I read my paper correctly, this is what we call public-private partnership, PPP,
yes,
where
right.
the Chinese are going to build the superhighway and then they are going to charge. It will be a toll. And to me, that's very positive because we shall not incur anything.
Let me explain this. I think my colleague and the senator does not seem to understand the PPP. A PPP is basically that you don't have money and somebody has money, he comes and puts his money and you share. Now these are public resources that you now give into private hands. It should be good if we were doing a PPP with the railway, what we can't afford. But doing a PPP just for somebody to help you fix a window pane in your home so that you share the house, that's wrong. That's why I'm saying 51 billion is basic. We get it from the excess money you people earn in allowances in parliament. Then we use it to do the road.
No.
You just sit once in a week for 6 months and we have the money.
Look here, surely. As of now, we don't have that road, do we?
We don't have.
So meaning, surely,
we have money which you are gobbling down
if somebody can come and put it at his own cost, and then he charges